founders of the Israeli state made it absolutely clear that they were going to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from the word go, and that is what they have done since 1948. This was the deadliest year for Palestinians in years before anything happened on October the 7th. I mean, Netanyahu stood in front of the UN in September with a map that erased all reference to Palestine. They made it clear. Netanyahu said earlier this year there will be no Palestinian state. Smotrich said there is no such thing as the Palestinians in March of 2023. You don't have the right to defend an illegal occupation. You don't have the right to defend apartheid. You don't have the right to defend years of ethnic cleansing. The only people who have the right to defend themselves are the Palestinians.
The United States has a special relationship with Israel that has no parallel in modern history.
Why are the US and Israel so close? Well, we're talking about at least 75 years of history, and there are lots of layers to this. But here are 5 things to consider. The US-Israel relationship started early and evolved over time. There was US support for a movement called Zionism, the idea of establishing a nation for Jewish people, even before Israel's creation in 1948.
After the Holocaust, that was combined with enormous sympathy, and that helped pave the way for Western support for the establishment of a Jewish state.
When that happened, it took President Truman just 11 minutes to recognize Israel. The two got closer in the 1950s and 60s because of how the Cold War played out in the Middle East. At one point, the Soviet Union sold weapons to Israel's neighbor Egypt. That eventually led to the US providing weapons to Israel.
And with time, Israel started to offer more and more strategic gains and advantages to the United States.
US and Israeli politicians also speak a lot about shared values. It's hard to define exactly what they mean by that. But here's Obama's take.
America's a nation of immigrants, enriched by faith. We're fueled by entrepreneurship and innovation, and we are defined by a democratic discourse. So in Israel, we see values that we share.
Whether Israel and the US live up to all of that is a separate issue. There's also the fact that the US has given more aid to Israel than any other country, about $260 billion in total, which included economic aid until 2008. Now it's just money for military spending. These days, Israel's getting $3.8 billion from US taxpayers every year. And here's the thing, almost all of it has to be spent in the US on weapons made by American companies.
So it's kind of a self-licking ice cream cone, really.
The fourth thing to consider is that for US politicians, being pro-Israel pays off. Something interesting to know here is that about a quarter of the US population are evangelical or born-again Christians. They're an important voter base and overwhelmingly pro-Israel.
Israel is not a political issue, it's a Bible issue.
Plus, there's the pro-Israel lobby groups like AIPAC. Now, there is debate about exactly how much power they have, but US politicians certainly pay them lots of attention.
Hello, AIPAC!
Wonderful to be here and see so many friends.
And they donate a lot of money to political candidates, both Republicans and Democrats. All those things have sustained a relationship that some say goes pretty much unchallenged. And that's where a lot of criticism comes in, especially on the Palestinian issue.
America is the guarantor of Israeli impunity. There are no costs and consequences.
We've gone into way more detail about this for our latest episode of Start Here. You can check it out on YouTube. Now, the idea for this episode actually came from Tim, who wrote me a message because his high school students in Australia wanted to know what underpins the unwavering US support for Israel. In other words,
in an unprecedented move, Israel has announced it will work alongside Egypt and the Palestinian Authority to develop the Gaza marine gas field, a gas reserve off the coast of the Hamas-run Gaza enclave. The gas field, which sits just about 30 kilometers off the Gazan coast, is estimated to hold more than 1 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Discovered over 20 years ago, the gas has remained untouched due to the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinian enclave. But now, with the West looking for alternative energy sources after distancing itself from Russia following the invasion of Ukraine, all parties involved are willing to make new strides. In a statement earlier this morning, the Israeli Prime Minister's office citing economic reasons for the move.
In the framework of the existing efforts between the State of Israel, Egypt, and the Palestinian Authority, with emphasis on Palestinian economic development and maintaining security stability in the region, it has been decided to develop the Gaza marine gas field off the coast of Gaza.
The Egyptian-owned eGas is expected to develop the field, pumping out more than enough gas needed for the Palestinian territories, allowing for the rest to be exported and provide vital income for the cash-strapped PA. Despite not being in talks on the project, Hamas is expected to unofficially sign off on any agreement to avoid the possibility of missile strikes on the new gas field once work begins.